Hello and welcome to the Everything's Better with podcast, where everything's better with the people I talk to. I'm your host, Aiden P3, aka Perry. In each episode, I talk to a different friend and fellow content creator about topics that interest us. Today, I have a very special guest, Justin Herold, who streams and makes YouTube videos like me. But I think Justin can probably do a better intro than I can for him. So why don't you introduce yourself, Justin?
Yeah, what's going on, guys? My name's Justin Herold. Like Perry said, we are friends and content creators in our own rights. Perry obviously has been doing a ton of great stuff recently, and I'm very glad that he's invited me onto his podcast for this. So I'm very much looking forward to talking to you guys and hopefully, getting into some interesting stuff.
Yeah, and it's good to thank you for coming, Justin. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a minute since we talked. Like Justin said, we're friends. I think how we met in 2020. So I think we both were starting out streaming. How long have you been streaming, Justin?
It's been so on and off since I started college. Probably like a year after I went to Ohio State, which I spent my first year of college at community college and then transferred to Ohio State. Which obviously Perry takes problem with because Ohio State is better than Clemson in football and
we don't have to talk about that.
But in terms of streaming, I've been on and off. In 2020 when the pandemic hit, I was pretty active and I was pretty, I was going pretty hard on it. A lot of really good games came out in 2020 and made it really easy for me.
And we'll talk about that.
But I've been kind of streaming for like 3, 4, maybe even like 5 years on and off.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I started off in 2020 actually. I think that's when a lot of my other friends started off as well. But Justin and I were playing the same game at the same time, but like we were playing I think Final Fantasy Remake. That was one of the games that came out in 2020. And I think we met in 2021 actually because I was playing the New Game Plus or something like that. And I think we talked about this earlier, but you just beat the game. You wanted to see other people playing it, and you saw my title, which was like I think my title was playing or having the unexaggerated swagger of like an anime sword board or something like that. It was like a parody of that Miles Morales meme of the guy that reviewed the Miles Morales game where he's like having the swagger of a black teen.
That's exactly
I was
what
parodying
it was.
that. Yeah,
You were
I was parodying that.
You were trying to refresh my memory before we started about how we met, and when you were trying to tell that story before, that's completely the whole like thing that happened because Miles Morales had just came out, or at least like previews or reviews of it came out, and that dude from what was it? Was it? It wasn't IGN. It was like GameSpot or.
I have no idea. It was probably GameSpot. It was probably one. It wasn't IGN, but it was one of those game review sites. But it wasn't. It wasn't.
That
IGN.
title, man. Like I told you before, I'm a small streamer, so like I get 2, 3, 4, 5 views during the stream or whatever. And when I sign off, and I was like, oh, you know what, I want to watch someone else play this like for the first time, or at least play through it. And I found your stream because I try to go for people who are typically my size or whatever, and that the title that's like one of my things is like trying to figure out a good title to get people to just click on, and yours was the perfect one at that moment. So.
Yeah, and I'm glad you clicked on it because like you turned out to be a really good friend, and glad my super creativity led you to me, I guess. So that's great.
No, I was super happy, and I stuck around. I stuck around for quite a bit. And
and then I beat you in Smash, and you hated me ever since.
And then I had to pull out Joker and learn how to play him.
Oh yeah, I don't remember if you. I don't remember. We gotta run that back again because I don't remember if you beat me with Joker or not. Because I main Link.
Right.
In Smash. And I have issues with Joker, but we'll have to run that back soon.
Absolutely.
But so as you can tell from our conversation, we and Justin are both gamers. I know my boys video popped off. I know most of my videos are video essays about like movies and TV shows, but I'm a gamer, guys. Like, I watch more or I play more games than I watch movies, which is a problem that I need to fix later. But I'm a gamer, so me and Justin are going to talk about like just our history with gaming, like how we became gamers essentially, I guess. Like our first video games, first consoles, stuff like that. Then we're gonna talk about like our like our views on where gaming is now, the direction of the future, and then we're gonna talk about some Game Awards stuff. We're gonna talk about the recent Game Awards and then like the Game of the Year winners of previous years, and like just give our opinions on if they should have won them or not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of our timeline. So let's start off with like our history of gaming. So Justin, why don't you? Because I think your gaming journey started earlier than I did, and we'll get into that when we get to my segment. But what was your first like memories of gaming? Like, what was the first games you played, the first consoles you had, and all that stuff?
So I'll probably be pretty relatable for most people. At least I think I am in terms of how I started with video games. I was a mere child, and back in my day, between the age of 1 to 6, where I didn't live in the United States of America, I was overseas with my family. The only console that I could actually have was a portable one, and so I had a Game Boy Color, and my very first game that I ever played was Pokemon Yellow. And so I recently put out like a tweet that, hey, these are like my top 10 favorite games of all time, and Pokemon Yellow / Pokemon Platinum made the list because, one, it got me into video games, and two, those are literally the games that I still play today. I still play Pokemon like a child, and I will continue to do so for as long as they will make Pokemon games, which will assuredly be longer than I live. So that'll be one constant in my life. But yeah, mainly just Pokemon. Like I said, I had not too many options with just having a Game Boy and everything, but at that time, Pokemon Yellow was out, not Fire Red, but Red, Blue, then the Crystal and Gold, and then I don't think we were there yet, but those were definitely the first 2 generations of Pokemon that I was able to play, and really like those are my earliest and most fondest memories of gaming at that age.
Nice. I have a different history of Pokemon. When I was growing up, I don't know if you what country you said you're from again?
So I'm from the United States, but my mom is from South Africa, and so the first couple of years of my life we spent in Tanzania, South Africa. And
that's cool.
We spent like another 2 to 3 years in the Republic of Georgia and Russia. So yeah, I've kind of been like all over the place, but I was born and raised in the United States.
Okay, that's cool. So you do know about the surge against Pokemon, how it was like the devil and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Because of evolution stuff like that.
Oh.
So my parents bought into that, and I couldn't watch or play any Pokemon games until I was like in middle school or high school or something like that. And by the time I got there, I grew up on platformers, and I thought I saw gameplay for Pokemon and saw that it was turn based, and I was like, why can't I just attack when I want to? And I just thought that was dumb. And I also thought that Pokemon was just like dogfighting for kids, which I also thought was stupid. So I didn't get into Pokemon until in college. Excuse me. My first Pokemon game was actually Sword and Shield, which surprises literally everybody I talk to about that, because I'm in my 20s, in my early to late 20s, and my first Pokemon game is like one of the new ones that came out a couple years ago, and it's like one of the worst ones.
Yeah, it's one of the most controversial ones,
or one of the weaker ones, I would say. Probably not the worst ones, but
yeah, for it being the first one on.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, just for it being one of the ones that was on Switch first, because we had the Let's Go game, the Let's Go Pikachu, and the Let's Go Eevee, which was like them trying to get kids that were buying PlayStations, buying Switches, parents that were buying Switches for their kids for Christmas, their birthdays, and whatnot. It was their way of trying to get them into Pokemon without them being like, hey, there's 800 other Pokemon that you've never met before, but you're just going to get thrown into this game because. Right.
And so, I remember that was a whole controversy around like Game Freak not putting in Pokemon or like old Pokemon to their games. And like that is an interesting argument or interesting point I didn't think of, because most people who are playing Sword and Shield, they're probably kids who never played a Pokemon game before, so they probably wouldn't care like the old Pokemon weren't in the game. So that's actually a good point.
But Pokemon fans are, like you said, they're all typically our age or like 10 years older, and it's like there'll always be upset, Pokemon fans.
Right.
Same
thing with Sonic, same thing with like literally any game franchise has been around for more than 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But But yeah, I guess it kind of goes in my history with gaming. So like, I didn't grow up with Pokemon. I actually didn't grow up with a lot of traditional video games because my first console was a PSP, and most of my games I had were like licensed games. So like, I had Cars, Ratatouille, Toy Story 3. I think on my PSP. I had Sonic and Pac-Man, Pac-Man Adventure World 3, which I love that game. And I'm surprised a lot of people don't like that game. Have you heard that game before?
I had a PSP too, and for me, I all the games that I played on PSP were like so out of this world. Like I can't even remember the name of half of them, but it's like I just remember that the disc always being the
Oh, it's so
hardest
weird, yeah.
to put in, and like I always felt like I was breaking the disc, or I was like
Yeah, me
breaking
too.
the PSP itself with how it went in, and
Yeah.
that's my sole memory of the PSP. I'm glad I have
Yeah.
a Switch now.
Yeah, I had a PSP, a DS, and a DS. No, I had a PSP, DSi, and a 3DS, and then now I have a Switch as my next portable console. But for my home consoles, I started off with the Wii, and I only played Sonic. Was I don't know if I said I played the Sonic Rivals games on PSP. I had Sonic and like licensed games. That's all I played on my PSP. On Wii, I only had Sonic games. I had Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Colors. Didn't play Mario Galaxy or Galaxy 2 or Arena Zeldas or anything like that. I just had the Sonic games. And then my next console was a PS3, and that's when I kind of started to evolve a little bit more as a gamer. I say like Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D was probably the first game that opened my eyes to like other games that weren't Sonic or like licensed games. But then I played like the Arkham series and the Uncharted series on PS3, and that kind of got me into more of the traditional gaming stuff. And then PS4 is where I'd start to play more games like Horizon Zero Dawn and what else did I play on PS4? Persona 5. What else? I should have wrote
God
these
of War?
down.
The first God
Uncharted
of
4,
War?
I guess. Oh yeah, God of War. Yeah, God of War. Yeah. So like some of the newer games that came out in the previous decade, like the last decade, Last of Us also. I think I played that both on PS3 and PS4 actually. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I was such a casual gamer for so long. Like, for me, like you talk about getting into like the more traditional games. I mean, for me, I think the traditional games, like for people who just like don't play games too often, but they'll buy the occasional ones, were like the Tony Hawk Undergrounds, the Pro Skaters.
yeah, I never played that.
The Call of Duties, like every Call of Duty that came out back in the day was a instant buy.
I was so trash at Call of Duty. I tried to play that at my friend's house when I was younger, and I couldn't keep up with them. I'm a little bit better at shooters now, but like back in the day, I couldn't play first person shooters.
I know. I just remember growing up on like Call of Duty, and people will be like, "Oh, I grew up in Call of Duty servers and whatnot." But like for me,
Yeah.
it was like I loved the campaign. I loved the campaigns for most of those games. Like I thought a lot of them were really good for my adolescent brain at the time. But then you talk about getting into games with actual like substance and
Right.
whatnot, and for me that was like Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 was the
Oh,
first
yeah.
like game that entered me into the universe of RPGs and high fantasy and all the stuff that you kind of like get into more as you understand things a lot better, because obviously still I can't even remember how old I was when I first bought Mass Effect 2, but that was my entry into that series. And there is a Mass Effect original game that I went back and played, but for me it was like such an eye-opening experience. It's like, wow, I've never felt all these complex like emotions and
Right.
thoughts and whatnot regarding a game story, decisions, the side characters, the plot, the setting, like all of it. It was so nuts to me as a child. But then from that point on, it was like, man, I just continued to play a lot of really good games, or a lot of games with substance, and a lot of games that weren't so like mindless and me just doing like tricks in Tony Hawk Underground, and just going into a multiplayer match for Call of Duty. So yeah, it was interesting to hear you say how you got into that.
Yeah, and my Mass Effect 2 is probably Uncharted 3. I think I don't know if you know who Cabana9456 is. He's an old YouTuber. He mostly plays Sonic and Mario games.
Okay.
Did that ring a bell or
No.
Yeah, he's gotten into some controversy recently, which I don't want to get into right now. But I saw him play Uncharted 3, And I was like, wow, this is like one of those adult shooter games I can't play. Let me see if I can buy it since this Sonic YouTuber, who I respected and like the same things I like. Let me see if I can get into this game. And I bought it, or I got it for Christmas that year, and I fell in love with it. Like that was like the first game for me that had like an actual story, that had like characters like having conversations and like and talking back and forth and all that stuff. And like the gameplay was also a lot more complex than I was used to. I think I did play Arkham City before that, and that was probably the most complex game I played up to that point, because before that I only played the Nintendo games and stuff like that, and Sonic games. But I think Atari 3 is the first one that was like, wow, like this is what gaming can really be. And I went back to Atari 2, and that was somehow even better because the gameplay was a lot better, a lot stronger. And then I think I played Uncharted 1 later on. I wasn't as impressed, but the Uncharted games definitely were. I hold them in high regard for getting me into like that aspect of gaming as well.
Yeah, well, the interesting part about that for me to hear you say is that you were watching some YouTuber that you watched back in the day play the game, and you're like, oh man, I wonder if I can get into this game. And a lot of it comes down to how old we are at that time, because Uncharted, I'm pretty sure, is an M-rated game. And for me,
it's actually teen rated.
Really? So
yeah, it's teen rated. Yeah.
So for me, what I had to deal with constantly was, you talk about like your parents kind of sheltering you a little bit from from games and stuff, from certain games and whatnot. And for me, I had to face that, and the like idea of going to ask my mom, hey mom, can you buy this game for me? And her being like, all right, well, what is it? And me having to try to explain to her what an M-rated game is and why it's rated M, and try to like swindle my way through the process of buying one of these games. And each time I remember that for the first time I went to buy Mass Effect 2, and then the tougher one was actually Gears of War. Which Gears of War is just straight gore, whereas like in Mass Effect, it's more about like the
sex.
Yeah, the sex and like the pole dancers and the Citadel and whatnot. So like that one's kind of easy because the dude at the cash register doesn't go like, yeah, there's strippers in this game or whatnot. But for Gears of War, it's like, hey, you should probably know that in every instance of this game there is gore. So. Yeah,
like it also depends on, for me, it also depends on like the cashier, how they pitch the game, because like my parents actually bought me The Last of Us and The Last of Us again for the PS4 when I was like well under age. I think I was 13 or 14 when those games came out. And like I think the cash register, or not the cash register, what do you call them? Those people, cashier, the cashier. Dude. It's been. I just finished editing a video. I spent like all night editing that video. My brain is not active right now. The cashier. I think they probably told him, yeah, no, this is basically like one of those M-rated games that are M-rated because there's like blood in it. Like there's no sex or nudity in it. It's just like they say the F word a couple of times, and that's probably why my parents got that for me. Whereas like my parents would never buy me like a game like GTA 5. Which has like literally everything wrong or every bad thing about an M-rated game in one game. Like they would never buy me that game.
Right.
But for games like Batman Arkham Knight or like Last of Us, where it's just like M-rated because like one or two things, they'll totally get those for me.
Yeah, but going back to again, like part of the story with you was that you were watching your it's so weird to me now that like I want to call him a streamer. Because he might be a streamer now, but back in the day it was just YouTube videos. And for me, that's how I got into a couple of like those higher end games. So I was gonna ask you, for me, I had Ghost Robo. Do you know who Ghost Robo was?
No, let me look him up.
So for me, he was the guy who I don't know who to compare him to nowadays, because it's like there's not traditional walkthrough players or people who do like the part 1s, part 2s, part 3s of walkthroughs for huge games like Skyrim. But this dude was playing Skyrim, and he hooked me on it. I was like, he made it seem like this game was so like lived in his own world, and he was doing his own thing. And it was like, man, talk about influence of just like YouTube and the media and whatnot, and obviously something that we're going to get into more. I just thought that it's interesting that we both started out with someone watching someone's videos in the past, and going forward and buying that game because of it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you probably didn't have like friends who played anything outside of like Call of Duty or like not GTA, NBA or
yeah, no,
2K,
it was
stuff like that.
A lot of it was always that Call of Duty, Madden, 2K, GTA 4 was probably like the biggest thing that was out of the realm of like, hey, like a select few of your friends have that game and you have it, but it's like one of those things where like, hey, all right, everyone got off for the night, let's go play some GTA.
Yeah, no, like most of my friends and most of like my peers in school and stuff like that, they were always playing like Madden or 2K, and they kind of like I got the feeling that they shunned like any other game. Like no one was talking about like Sonic or Nintendo in like a very high place. In fact, like every time I tried to mention Sonic, like everyone was like, "How you're just a kid" and stuff like that. Like, what'd you say?
No, I was making the joke of like no one played Pokemon when I played Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly. And now everyone's playing Pokemon because now it's cool because gaming's like become bigger. Yeah. But if you had anything else to say about history of gaming, or do you want to like move on to our next topic?
No, we can move on to the next topic.
Okay, cool. And I guess that transition kind of brings us to our next topic, which is kind of the future of gaming. So I've been in the gaming world long enough to recognize that it's not the same as it was, especially as watching videos, which I guess isn't the same thing as experiencing myself, but like just watching YouTube videos and retrospectives on how like old games used to be compared to how they are now. Like for example, like if you look at the newest God of War games, they're nothing like the old ones, and like I feel like the old ones are a lot more racier, because I know a lot of games reached controversy. Like you got the I think GTA 4 had the hot whatever, the hot coffee,
hot coffee.
The hot coffee mod, yeah, and then like you had like the Mass Effect, people were thinking about having like PG-13 sex in the game, stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And then with God of War, I know people were I don't know the exact level or the exact game, but people were complaining about how Kratos would use like a woman to like as an object to like solve puzzles, like a dead woman as an object. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and like I'm just thinking about that, and I was thinking about that recently, and I was thinking to myself like that would never fly in like a game, like the modern God of War games, because like I feel like gaming now has become more squeaky clean, more PC, more mainstream, so it can appeal to wider audiences. Whereas gaming back then, I feel like they took more risks, or they did more controversial stuff because they knew that they can get away with it. But now that gaming has become as big, or probably the biggest entertainment industry in the world now, we can't get away with a lot of things. So what are your thoughts on like that aspect of like where gaming is going now?
Well, when I compare like the past to the future, the one biggest thing for me is how I know things have gotten like way more attention than they did back in the day. It's just like release dates. Biggest thing is release dates. Back when Mass Effect 3 was the game that I was waiting for forever, they only released one trailer of gameplay, but nowadays we get like two or three different videos or showcases of
we get a whole directs about like showing off like a full section of the game, like Yeah, I agree.
And for me, it's like, wow, like that alone has set it apart very vastly, because I think Mass Effect 3 in my eyes as a child was like one of the biggest games ever, whereas now like if you go and you look at something, anything nowadays like Stray, of all things, could be I don't want to say published, but promoted to the 9th degree, and a game like Mass Effect 3 still only has the one trailer that it needed to, sell as much as it did and do as much as it did. But there's a ton of different things with games back then and the games now, like you were mentioning. Obviously, the just general improvements of graphics, story, gameplay, whatnot. But for me, like, I think what you were alluding to earlier is like, hey, gaming has become such a huge medium. It's crazy. The Game Awards which we're going to talk about later, has gotten bigger and bigger every year, and
Right.
it's like, well, how do you continue to top this? How do you continue to push it forward? And what's it going to be like in another decade or so?
Right. And like I've started to someone I talked to a lot, one of my YouTube friends called Janiat Jr. He pointed out that gaming, and I guess this is just the entertainment industry as a whole, but gaming has tended to follow like trends. So you know how like The Last of Us got popular in 2013, and like literally every other game after that came out, we're trying to like tell like serious stories like The Last of Us.
Yeah.
So you have like Last of Us. Let me look at this gaming list. Like I guess like
I would list
God
like
of War.
a lot of the PlayStation games tried to follow the formula of like, hey, Naughty Dog did this, and they're doing, and a lot of it has to do with Naughty Dog, the studio in general,
Right.
because obviously they're behind Uncharted and everything. But
Right.
the fact that they went and made The Last of Us, and it's like barely a 10-hour long game, and it tells one of the best stories in video games. It has really good game mechanics, and it combines a lot of like the likable features of more popular games and kind of puts it into one. And that's why I feel like a lot of these other games now, like a Horizon, you can make the argument for God of War, Ghost of Tsushima. Like a lot of them follow that kind of same formula if you really pick them apart and kind of digest them a bit more.
Yeah, and like I see a lot of arguments about how they don't like people don't like stories in games, or like games should be like only gameplay, only like the action stuff that you do, and not like telling you like or showing you an entire movie. Because like people are making the argument like, oh, like if you like the story in games so much, why don't you just watch the cutscenes online for free? And I don't really agree with that too much, because like I feel like part of like experiencing a game, especially a game with like a narrative, is like actually playing through it and experiencing it yourself instead of like just watching it. Because like even though like you can technically make the argument that these games are starting to be produced like movies with like characters and stories and acting on stuff, and you can potentially watch it as like a backseat gamer and just watching it online. I don't think that's the same as actually playing it yourself. It's kind of like the difference between like driving somewhere on a trip and like being a passenger, if that makes sense. Like whereas like when you're driving, you're kind of focused on like every little detail of like the road, like taking the turn, making sure you're following the GPS or whatever you're using on the trip to a T. Whereas you're a passenger, you're just probably like just listening to music or going to sleep or something like that. You don't have to pay attention as much compared to if you're actually playing a game. And even nowadays, I don't know if this has been a thing for a while, but like I was playing God of War Ragnarok. I don't know if you played that yet. Have you?
Yeah, no, I think I'm about like 15 hours into it.
Okay, I won't spoil anything, but there are moments in gameplay itself where the characters will have like character growth in their dialogue, or like they have very compelling dialogue inside the gameplay itself that actually adds onto the story and adds onto the characters. You can't get that if you just watch the entire if you just watch the cutscenes online or something like that. You won't get those moments with the characters and stuff like that if you want to experience the story. So like I feel like that argument isn't like very compelling, even though that's kind of where gaming is going. How do you feel about that?
No, I'm in a complete agreement. And for me, like I always refer back, because I one thing that I'll die on a hill about for gaming is that I think Mass Effect 2 is like one of those games where it's perfect for me, because I get those small moments, I get the big moments, and it's really a matter of like how do I want to go about getting those moments. And obviously with it being an RPG, I get to pick and choose a lot of different things. So I get to pick and choose who comes with me on a mission. So like I could be Garrus and Tali, or it could be Grunt and Thane, these different characters, and it could be the same mission. That's why there's so much replayability in a lot of these games nowadays, is that
Right.
There's different ways to go about things, and you get something different out of it each time. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of those games I think I heard a lot of people say it's a long game, but hey, I would go back and play it a second time so I could see how certain things turn out differently if I approach it a different way.
Yeah, that's another game I want to go back to too, because I feel like I kind of rushed that game a little bit. But go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I can understand some of those criticisms of like, hey, like man, this is supposed to be a game. Like I don't need to be not playing a game and putting my controller down. I've had some of those criticisms before, and like I can get behind like QTCs or QTCs.
Quick time events.
Yeah, quick time events. Quick time. I don't know why I put C in there, but
no, you're good. You're good. I kind of got what you're trying to say. See, so I'm a gamer. I'm on your wavelength. I automatically understood what you said, so that's fine.
But so for people who don't know what that means, it's in the middle of a cutscene or in the middle of a cinematic, there's still inputs that need to be made for something to progress, for the story to progress, for an action to progress, and I think those are still needed in a lot of these cases, because in a game like God of War Ragnarok, there are the occasions where I'm just putting my controller down for 5 to 10 minutes and I'm watching a cinematic, or I'm watching a clip of the whatever it may be, and not having to put an input where I think a lot of those things are just easily fixable, and some of them are just preferences. It's like the people who want to play Call of Duty want to play Call of Duty. The only time they want to not be having the controller in their hand is when they're in the lobby, and that's it. But then there are the people who, like me and you, Final Fantasy VII Remake or God of War Ragnarok or The Last of Us Part 2. There's a lot of these games now where there are long cinematics, long periods of time where you might not actually be doing anything with your controller, but a nice thing that for one, PlayStation has tried to do is like make haptic triggers and make haptic.
I love haptic triggers. I love that so much. Sorry.
It just adds to the story,
Yeah,
and
like
to the feeling that you were talking about like you don't get those small moments if you don't play the game. If you don't play the game, you'll never know that that's what you feel during those moments.
Yeah, and I was literally digging in that too while I was playing God of War Ragnarok. Like a lot of people don't like the fact that most of these games have become walking simulators, where there's sections of the games where you're just walking or like watching a cutscene or pressing a button to watch a cutscene, and like I can kind of get behind that a little bit, because it's like, I wish I could actually like whenever Kratos grapples onto something, I kind of wish I can it was more like physics based, where I can like actually do the action itself instead of like pressing a button and watching a cutscene. But the haptic feedback, man, like it makes you feel like you're actually doing it, and like that alone kind of like makes up for like you just watching them do the action instead of doing the action yourself. Does that make sense what I just said?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
The only thing that I will argue about the haptic triggers is that for most shooters, they're pretty bad. I don't like them. I typically turn them off for like shooters, but in terms of like when you're in like I can already think of it. I haven't played the Callisto Protocol yet. Or even Dead Space 1, they're remaking Dead Space, but I imagine that those games, like horror games, like the I don't want to say The Last of Us, but Resident Evil, I'm sure those Resident Evil games get a little bit more pop with the controller kind of freaking you out in silent moments and kind of the slower moments.
Yeah, and even like games like I don't know if I know you played Ratchet. Did you play Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that and Returnal. Those games, what they did with the haptic trigger, adaptive triggers. What they do with them is you have to they add these pressure sensors where like you hold it a certain amount and it does one thing, and you hold it push it all the way and does another thing. Which I wish more PS5 games did that, but like since most PS5 games are PS4 ports, or like they're cross-platform, not a lot of them will do that. And I hope like with the next games, like I think Spider-Man 2 is gonna be a PS5 game. Hopefully they'll include something like that in those games, because I really like that kind of add a little bit more strategy when you're shooting in Ratchet & Clank and Returnal, where like do you want to like do like a little bit of shooting, or like go all the way and do like the special move with that weapon, and I hope more games do that. Did you have anything else to say about?
No.
Yeah.
I think for the most part we hit on a lot of things in terms of just like.
Yeah, I do want to head on one more thing, and I'm glad you're here with me, because I know you hate this game. So my favorite game of all time is actually Breath of the Wild, which is I think you know that, which is completely different from like Last of Us, Uncharted, because it's mostly just gameplay. Yeah. Now I do love a good narrative. I do love a good linear game. Like Uncharted 4 is one of my favorite games of all time. Last of Us, that's like my third favorite game of all time. Persona 5, like, come on.
Yeah.
I talked about that to
Yeah.
death, if I haven't already. But Persona 5 Royal is like literally like that is my second favorite game of all time. It is one of the best gaming stories I've ever experienced. You also agree with that because we talked about that extensively.
We're lucky that this isn't about Persona 5 Royal because we'd be here all day.
Yeah, no, we would be, and I'm so glad it's being ported to other systems because like I think that's a game that a lot of people need to play. But Breath of the Wild is my favorite game because I feel like everything I do in that game was earned. It's a open world game, and I played a bunch of open world games. I played Skyrim, I played Batman Arkham City. I think I played a little bit of Witcher 3. And like those games are great. Witcher 3 I need to try again because I haven't really gotten to that very much. But Breath of the Wild was like the first open world game where I felt like all my decisions mattered and all my decisions like it gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted to do, and I appreciate games that are like that because I think some games are starting to be more like Breath of the Wild. Like the new Horizon Zero Dawn game kind of gives you that freedom of choice of like choosing which route you want to go to. Ghost of Tsushima also kind of gives you that a little bit, but Breath of the Wild, and I know you disagree because I think you said that you just didn't get into Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah, so for me, Breath of the Wild
Good.
it's incredible because you say that Breath of the Wild is your favorite game ever, and for me, I can't really tell if I have because it does switch for me a favorite game of all time because now I'll say it's The Witcher 3 because The Witcher 3 just came back out with the next gen upgrade. I'm replaying.
Oh, so you did beat The Witcher 3, okay?
Oh yeah, The Witcher 3 is I mean, I proclaim it as the best game ever. That I've ever played.
I'll let you finish. Sorry, and I see why it is a great game. I just every time I pick it up, I just couldn't get into it. I'm hoping whenever I do pick up the next gen update version of the game, I can get back into it and like see what everyone's talking about. And I'm sure I'll love that game because I love the Mass Effect games. I love the Fallout games, which has Witcher 3 borrows a lot from those. I'm assuming.
Yeah, the interesting thing about like why I chose to pick The Witcher 3 to talk about the Breath of the Wild is that I feel like they're two very, very different games where in one way The Legend of Zelda, it like you said, it gives you a ton of freedom to do whatever you want, but it doesn't really give you a lot to go on in my opinion. It's like it tells you what the main quest is or like what you're supposed to be doing in terms of like, hey, this is the events that happen in this world. This is what you need to go do and fix it. And then everything else that you do, like you find side mission wise or whatever you'd like to call them, side stories, side missions, side objectives, whatever. None of those felt like gripping to me in any way. I hated doing the temples. I'm not a puzzle person to start. I hate puzzles. So that's probably one of the biggest issues for me is that a lot of the stuff was not predicated around you doing the temples, but they were fast travel points, so you needed them.
Right.
So that was one of my issues. The second issue is just like none of the side story stuff ever really like grabbed my attention. Like none of the side
That's fair.
outside of like going for the Master Sword, which is like something that I had to like really fight to find because I was like, man, I wonder, like, is the Master Sword a part of the main story? Is it a side thing? That was the one time I was like, man, I kind of like that it was a side thing and not necessarily something I had to do in order to complete the game. But in The Witcher 3, you start on the main mission and then you get lost in the open world. For me, it was like I had to streamline Zelda because I couldn't just get lost. I couldn't get gripped into the world of Hyrule and the surrounding locations and the different creatures and the different civilizations and whatnot. Whereas The
That's
Witcher,
fair.
for me, it was instantaneous. It's like they kind of push it in your face, like, hey, this is an open world game. There's going to be a lot for you to do outside of the main quest line, and a lot of it's probably way more gripping than the actual main story. But hey, here it is.
I guess for me, like, I do understand the sentiment that Breath of the Wild doesn't have like very interesting side quests or even very interesting civilizations. I think some of them, the worlds are fascinating, especially just seeing where how it evolved from other games, because I'm a huge Zelda fan. I played almost all the 3D Zeldas except Majora's Mask, which I need to play. I don't know if you ever played the any other Zelda games before Breath of the Wild, but I think I do have a little bit of a bias against that. But one of the things I do love about the game is another thing I love about the game, and I don't think other open world games did it, was like just the traversal. So like Zelda, especially Breath of the Wild, has like this cell shaded style to it, meaning that it's kind of realistic but not really. So like it allows you to do these kind of unrealistic movements and actions without like breaking the immersion of it. So like, you know, Blink can literally climb however long he wants to until like his green thing goes away, which you can't do in an open world game because that will break the realism or the immersion, right? The immersion of the game. Whereas Breath of the Wild is kind of like a cartoon, like you don't really think about that much. Same thing with the gliding and stuff. Like you can literally glide as long as you want to, for until like the green the endurance meter goes out, and it just works. Like it's just, I don't know, like it found this balance between realism, because like you can still use physics and like real world things in the world, but it also has this cartoony like aspect to it. And I like that it's like a video gamey game without like having anything to break the immersion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you know what's really funny to me? Have you ever seen the dude on? Do you have TikTok?
I do, but I don't use it that much. But go ahead.
There was a period of time where my TikTok was filled with this one dude doing like not trick shots, but like trick jumps, where he'd like cut down a tree and then he'd shoot like 11 arrows into it, hit it with a hammer, get on it, and like reach this impossible location. And I was like, man, that's like one of the coolest things that I've seen in that game. But like, it's not one of the things that I would be able to do. You know, it's interesting. And that'll always be my favorite part about video games, movies, TV shows in general, is that everyone will have a different experience to something than you will. And the best part about that is being able to take someone else's enjoyment and also share in that. Because like, I think a lot of the problem with streamers and YouTubers and people who make content, a lot of times they get down on themselves because they'll read negative comments, or they'll read that like, hey, something wasn't as good as what they intended, and kind of get down on themselves for that. But like, if you kind of just don't acknowledge those things, if you just kind of let them go by the wayside, there's a difference between taking criticism and trying to make something better of it, and then also, you know, taking someone's bad comment and someone's negative comment and being like, oh, well, I should never do that again. A lot of that stuff is just in your own mind, and it's whether or not you enjoy it. And if you enjoyed it, you should feel nothing bad about that. And that's kind of how I've taken my approach of like trying to stream and trying to watch other streamers, watch other people put out content, and you know, try to replicate that one day in the future. It's just like, don't get too much in your head about it. Just enjoy the good things and enjoy other people's good things. If someone else has a passion for something you don't, then just be happy that, hey, someone was able to find something cool out of this thing that I didn't, you know, take the same liking to.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, I like watching YouTube videos where I don't necessarily agree with their points, but I can understand where they're coming from. Like, do you know Ego Raptor? I'm sure you know him, right?
No.
Aaron Hansen.
Who?
Aaron Hansen.
Aaron Hansen.
Game Grumps.
No.
Okay, well, he made a video about Ocarina of Time like a decade ago, that literally dissected and tore apart that game. And you know, Ocarina of Time is considered to be a lot of people's favorite game of all time.
Right.
But like, and I love the game. I love that game. It's not one of my favorite games of all time, but I definitely would put that up there in like top 20, top 15. And he made a lot of points I didn't agree with, but I kind of saw where he's coming from, and that's like one of my favorite YouTube videos of all time, or not of all time, but one of my favorite YouTube videos, despite him like taking apart that game. So it is cool to hear other people's aspect of it, because if you're just watching or in circles of people who only like the things that you like, you know, that's not interesting. You know, you don't have any like you can't like get a different perspective on things that you like or you don't like, because you're always with people that, you know, like the same thing you like. So it's always cool. It's good to like be in other people's circles and experience other people's opinions and thoughts on things, so you can like at least hear the other side of it, and you don't have to necessarily agree with it, but you can like understand like, hey, like I understand like hearing what you don't like about it. I understand why you don't like it, even though I don't agree with it.
Right.
So I definitely agree with that sentiment.
For me, two things. One, the part about taking other people's, like, being able to gain something out of other people's enjoyment is, I probably would have never played I would have never played Persona 5 Royal and gotten into as much of Persona as I have now, or that I'm going to get in a month when P3P and P4 Golden come to Xbox Game Pass and Switch. But if I had never come into your chat and talked to you about Final Fantasy Remake, I don't think I would have ever played Persona 5 Royal, because we went from talking about, hey, Final Fantasy 7 Remake is a JRPG, here's another one of, you were talking, I remember you doing one of like the mini games inside of Final Fantasy Remake, and in that period of time you were just talking about Persona 5 Royal, and I was like, man, I've heard stuff about that. I've heard stuff about Persona 5. I haven't really heard anything about Persona 5 Royal because it's newer. And so, I went, I did my research, and I was like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll go buy Persona 5 Royal, and it's turned out to be one of my favorite games of all time. Something that
That's
like
cool. I didn't realize I know it was one of your favorite games of all time. I remember us talking about that, but I didn't realize that I started you on that. Yeah. Or I forgot. I kind of remember that now, but that's cool.
Yeah, and then the second part of that, is something I think is a little bit of a segue transition into what I believe is the last conversation, which is the Game Awards. I've watched the Game Awards for the past, I want to say 4 years now, with one of my best friends, and we constantly disagree on like the game of the year and the game direction and whatnot. But like at the same time, those are games that it's not where we're not just arguing to argue. It's like, hey, we have such high opinions about these things. Here's what I like about it. Here's why I don't think that your game should be game of the year. And that's kind of why I feel like the Game Awards has done so much to like broaden the view of gamers in general and kind of just push that medium forward.
And like I out of all the like award shows in the entertainment industry, like, the Grammys, the Oscars, the Emmys, all that stuff, I feel like the Game Awards is probably the most what is the word, intact, or like the most like true, or I can't think of words right now.
I'm trying to think
it's the most honest. It's the most honest. It's the most honest. That's the word.
Yeah.
It's the most honest.
Yeah,
because
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and like besides 2020, which we'll get into when we get to that, I feel like most of the Game of the Year, most of the awards that have been given out from when I've watched the Game Awards have been earned and have been fair. Will we see some snubs? Will we see some games that get awards that are like, of course they'll get the awards because of the name alone, yes, and that's very much 2020, and we'll get to that when we get to that. But I think for the most part, especially this past year in the 2020 Game Awards, I feel like everything that won an award in the Game of the Year, Elden Ring, definitely earned that award. I know you don't like Elden Ring. I think we talked about that. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit, but we don't have to. I guess we can talk about it when we get to that. Absolutely. To this year's or last year's Game Awards. But I felt like Elden Ring definitely earned the Game of the Year this past year.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't. But that's the thing. Like, I always try to perceive myself as someone who, like, even when I have my likes and dislikes, I try to stick to, like, hey, in general, do I think this is a good game overall? And for me, Elden Ring was far and above the Game of the Year for me this year. Just like last year for me, it was It Takes Two. But a lot of the time, it like, even if I don't like a game like Elden Ring, I can still acknowledge that, hey, outside of, like, I know a lot of people will talk about God of War Ragnarok was in the conversation, it was better, whatnot. I think when you talk about Elden Ring, you have to acknowledge, like, hey, it's a Souls game. Not a lot of people like get into Souls games, and this brought a lot of people into Souls games to try it, to get hooked into it and whatnot. But God of War Ragnarok in its own way is like, hey, it is just more of 2018 with improvements, It's not it's not like it's doing something. Now, I haven't finished the story, and the story could be something monumental, but it is one of those things where you kind of just put it in perspective, and you're like, hey, there isn't something that's been like Elden Ring in a while. But God of War Ragnarok literally just came out in 2018 as God of War. So
Right. Right, yeah, and I agree with that. I think God of War Ragnarok, after beating it, I think it is a phenomenal game. It has issues, but I think it's way better than 2018, and it's definitely one of the best games of 2022. But Elden Ring for sure. I think just for the it's the way it brought the community together alone. I felt like earns its Game of the Year award because like I remember like watching so many Elden Ring videos just to look up like how like secrets and like how to get weapons, stuff like that, and like all those videos got so many views, so many comments, and even in the game itself with like players leaving anonymous messages and things like that, like it was like a perfect way to make you feel alone or not alone, even though you're completely alone in those dungeons, stuff like that, and like just seeing that other people are struggling with you kind of makes you to continue on your quest and all that stuff, and to persevere over these hard bosses and the hard obstacles and things like that, because other people have done the same, and other people have persevered and all that stuff. And it was just a great time to play that game when I did, and I have so many great memories playing that game. Okay. But yeah, I guess we can transition now to the Game of the Year. So how this is going to work, Justin, I have the Wikipedia page of each Game of the Year from 2014 to 2022.
Okay.
So I have all the Game of the Year nominees and winners open on this tab. And what we're just gonna do is I'll tell you the Game of the Year of that year and tell you each game that came out, and we'll just talk about did this game deserve it, and if there's another game that should have gotten it over the other game.
Okay.
So and also like our histories with the. Say it again.
I just pulled up the same page just so that I have reference.
Okay.
So hopefully,
cool.
You won't have to take the whole load of that.
Cool. That's good because I'm probably gonna mess up. So 2014, I remember this year. I didn't watch the Game of the Year, the Game Awards this year, but I do remember this year because that was just when I started to get into more gaming and like gaming journalism and stuff like that. But so the Game of the Year this year was, as you could probably see, it was Dragon Age Inquisition, which I barely remember, if I'm being honest. Like I remember when it came out, but I don't hear anyone talking about that game anymore. Wow. Do you agree, or like do you remember that game?
I remember. Or I completely agree that Dragon Age Inquisition should have won Game of the Year for 2014. Like I said, huge RPG fan. If you didn't know, Mass Effect is made by BioWare as well.
BioWare, right.
For all those out there. So it very much fits into my genre of games, RPGs, JRPGs, and whatnot. And it was high fantasy, so it was fantastic in my opinion. And I've been waiting since 2014 for the next actual game. They had DLC in between then, but it's been a long time since I've waited for the newest Dragon Age game, which seemingly is still not coming out until probably next year or something like that.
Dang. Yeah, I'm not really huge into fantasy, even though Elden Ring, I just literally guessed about Elden Ring for a good 5 minutes. I'm mostly like a sci-fi guy, so like, sci-fi or like just action adventure.
Yeah.
Even though I just thought about Legend of Zelda as well, but Legend of Zelda has some sci-fi elements in it as well, which keeps me interested. But I'm not like 100% opposed to like high fantasy or like fantasy in general stuff. But it just won't catch my attention as much as like other games.
Right.
But the other games that were also nominated were Bayonetta 2, Dark Souls 2, Hearthstone, and Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor. Out of all of those, I think I only played Bayonetta 2, and I think it definitely deserved to be nominated that year. But after playing it recently, or I think I played it 2018, so that was about 4 years ago, I felt like it was pretty easy, especially compared to the first Bayonetta. I don't know if you played the Bayonetta games before.
I haven't played any of them. I was thinking of picking up the third one before all that like controversy happened. Yeah,
I heard the third one is kind of a mixed bag. I think more people had issues with the story and like I guess decisions with the romance between two of the characters, but more so than the gameplay itself.
Gotcha.
I'll probably play that around Christmas time. I haven't played it yet, but I played the first two, and the first one is great. It's just really, really hard, and I think that game came out in 2009, so that's kind of the period before gaming got really popular. So I think that game was a little bit less hand-holdy than Bayonetta 2, because Bayonetta 2 kind of felt like more of a hand-holdy game that kind of let you do like all the cool things in the first game without like the risk, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
Because they're but Bayonetta is like hack and slash, kind of like Devil May Cry.
Right.
I don't know if you played that game either, but
Devil May Cry was a tough game for me to even try to get into, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I got you. I think I played the third one and I couldn't really get through it, but I want to at least try 5 before I die. So I got a lot of time, hopefully. But yeah, the other 3 games, Dark Souls 2, Hearthstone, and Middle Earth. I don't really know a lot about them. I know Dark Souls 2 is definitely the black sheep now compared to like Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and Elden Ring now. But yeah, I don't really know much about those games beyond that. Do you? Or
the Middle Earth Shadow of Mordor was kind of like the it was really good because I think more of the second one. I don't remember Middle Earth. I don't remember what the second one is called, but the way that it went about kind of the enemy system was really unique, where you could like control and dominate the orcs and get them to be on your side. It had a lot of unique instances, but I think it fell apart in terms of like story and other like gameplay aspects. Like what it did well in some areas, it did poorly in others, more so than not. So yeah, that's all I really know.
Got you. Yeah, I remember buzz around this game, but I haven't heard much about it since it came out. I think you can get it on PlayStation Plus, or it was a free game for PlayStation Plus, and I might have it, but I haven't touched it yet. But yeah, cool. So I guess that's it for 2014. Oh, and quick note, by the way, I know you mentioned that the Game Awards have gotten more attention since it came out. The first Game Awards had 1.9 million viewers. This last Game Awards had 103 million viewers. So that's crazy to me.
Yep. And now the little known fact about Jeff Keighley, his parents are actually like CEOs of IMAX, so the like highest edition, the highest edition that you can watch like movies or like whatever you want to call it. That's why he put the Game Awards this year. I want to say he did it last year too. That he put it in like some IMAX theaters. But I know that this.
I think I remember him saying that.
Yeah, this year and next year they're going nuts. So they're like doing a whole thing in Hollywood for Game Awards music, and then they're gonna have a lot of IMAX theaters for next year to watch the Game Awards. Which I'm debating if I should. I'm debating if I want to go to next year's Game Awards in person because it's going to be such a stacked year.
Okay, so yeah, let's go and get into 2015 now. So this year was definitely this is the year that Witcher 3 came out, and that won Game of the Year. Yeah. I remember that the other games that got nominated were Bloodborne, Fallout 4, Metal Gear Solid 5, and Super Mario Maker for the Wii U.
So this one for me, I mean, it's easy because the only other game I played outside of The Witcher 3 was Fallout 4. Metal Gear Solid, that series in general, I have to believe that it's always going to be in the running for those Game of the Year awards.
Except Metal Gear Survive, but we don't talk about that.
Well, I've never played any of those games, so I wouldn't know. So
right. I'll be honest. 5 is the only one I played a little bit of 5 and a little bit of 2, but I haven't beaten either of them, so I'm almost in the same boat as you.
Yeah, anything coming from Kojima, honestly, like I feel like it'll have enough hype in its own right. To make it to that kind of stage. But for me, I know all the controversy with The Witcher 3 when it came out. It was not as bad, but similar to Cyberpunk.
Oh no, it doesn't even hold a candle to Cyberpunk. I know what you're talking about too.
Right.
Cyberpunk was rough.
But I remember playing this game at the end of 2015, and it didn't have any bugs. It didn't have any problems for me, and it was just to this day. We're playing it again to this day. So.
Yeah, that's good. And I need to probably jump on that too while I have some time. But yeah, I played all of these nominees. I've only beaten 2 of them. Or actually no, one of them. I only beaten Fallout 4. You can't really beat Super Mario Maker because that's just it's an infinite game. But Fallout 4, that was my first Fallout game. That was my first like Western JRPG Western RPG. Excuse me. And I know it's like not as good as like New Vegas or Fallout 3, but I remember enjoying it. And considering it was my first Western RPG, like I had fun with it. Bloodborne, I've been playing it on and off ever since I got it. I think in 2016, and that game is a Soulsborne game, and I not really great at those. Elden Ring kind of opened my eyes to that, but I do want to go after playing Elden Ring. I do want to go back and play some of the Soulsborne games. The Bloodborne is definitely going to be one of them. Metal Gear Solid 5, even though I haven't beaten it, I can understand why that game was so popular because like it's like Breath of the Wild where you can do literally anything you want to. I know like the Metal Gear Solid games are known for their stories, and I know a lot of people were complaining about how the story was non-existent, but the gameplay was really solid. So I'll probably go back and play that again. And then Mario Maker, I mean, it's Mario Maker. Like you can't go wrong with that. Yeah, so I guess we can move on if you don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah, cool. All right, so 2016. This year, okay, this is probably going to be my first like. I don't really super agree with the game of the year. So, game of the year was Overwatch, like you just said, and the other games that came out were nominated were Doom, Inside, Titanfall 2, and Uncharted 4. So personally, I feel like Uncharted 4 should have won. Even I understand why Overwatch won. I know it was very popular.
Yeah.
I didn't play it because I don't think at that time I was super into first person shooters. But I understand like the hype around that. But I feel like Uncharted 4 was probably a better game overall. And even though I haven't played Overwatch, I probably shouldn't say that. But Uncharted 4, I think it was definitely. Even people liked it. I think people didn't really appreciate it until like now. I think after more people play, I'm starting to hear more people talk about how good the game actually was. But I'll let you talk about the other ones if you want to.
Well, honestly, when you look at the nominees, it was a stacked year overall.
Yeah.
Overwatch, Doom, Inside, Titanfall 2, Uncharted 4. I never played Uncharted 4. I never played Titanfall. I've never played any of these games except for Overwatch. I played a little bit of Doom, and I played a little bit of the original Titanfall. But here's what I'll say. I know that a lot of people say the same thing that you said about Uncharted 4, that it wasn't really appreciated until after the fact. Titanfall 2 is probably the greatest game ever in that.
Titanfall 2 is really good.
I played that too. Frame of mind where people were like, not high on it when it first came out, and then like years later people like go back and rave about it, and they're like, yeah, it's a shame that it didn't get its flowers because the first game sucked so bad.
I do remember like, it was getting a lot of buzz, but I don't think it was getting enough buzz. I'm actually surprised it was nominated because like you said, I don't think people were really appreciating it until like years later. I didn't actually play it until it was free on PlayStation Plus when I was in college, so that was about 4 years after it got nominated. So yeah, no, I agree. Titanfall, I haven't beaten it yet, and I think I was almost at the end of the last time I played it. I got to go back and beat it because it was a fun game. But I do agree, Titanfall 2 was really fun.
Yeah, and I think the only reason that like you kind of see that Overwatch 1 is like, I think back not like before it's tough. I mean, Overwatch is the only multiplayer game, or I don't want to say the only multiplayer game, but it's like the biggest multiplayer game that ever got nominated in this category. Because afterwards, it's like, what else are you going to put in there that's a multiplayer game outside of like Smash? And even Smash, in my opinion, isn't like
PUBG was also nominated next year, I believe.
Yeah, but in my mind, like Smash game isn't typically something that I'd associate like Game of the Year with. It's like, hey, that's a really fun multiplayer game, but I don't know that it carries the weight of the entire year.
We'll get into it when we get there, but I feel like Smash is nominated more for the sentiment of like what it represents over the actual game, because it's supposed to represent like all, like it's supposed to be a celebration of all of gaming, even though it's mostly Nintendo and like old school games. But I think that's probably why it got nominated. I knew it wasn't going to win because like it was up against like God of War and Red Dead Redemption. It was not going to win Game of the Year, but I understand why it was nominated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll before we go into the next one, I'll briefly touch on the other ones I played. Doom is fantastic. I wish I played it when it first came out. I remember seeing Doom and like seeing how popular it was. And I usually would play popular games because I wanted to see like what all the fuss was about. But I just didn't think I would like Doom because like it was very much like heavy metal and like the like very gory and stuff. I wasn't really a huge fan of that. But I think I played it in college because it was like it was a sale. I got it for like $5. I was like, might as well play it just to see what everyone was talking about all those years ago. And I loved it. I fell in love with it like almost immediately. Like it is such a great game, and it actually got me to playing more FPSs. Like I started playing Apex Legends because of Doom and Doom Eternal, which we'll talk about when we get there. Because I also got nominated, I think, in 2020. And then Inside I also played recently, and that's a great game too. I don't have much to say about it because, like, it's a great game.
Yeah.
Like
sometimes that's all it takes though. Is like when we get to 2020, I think, or 2021. I'll have that conversation about the games listed there in comparison to what won, and I'll have a very similar connotation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, sorry. Was that it?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. Okay. All right, so 2017. So yeah, my favorite game of the year, or my favorite game of all time, got Game of the Year, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Excuse me. And it has some pretty good competition if
some very
if I can kind of say that. So other nominees were Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, PlayerUnknown's Battleground, and Mario Odyssey. So I'll say Horizon Zero Dawn is a great game, but I think it had the unfortunate, and people have said this a million times, it had the unfortunate
luck of
unfortunate
Breath of the Wild coming out
timing.
in the same month.
Yeah, come out literally the same week or same like almost month or something like that. It come around the same time. So it didn't really have a chance because, like, Breath of the Wild is literally like one of the most, like, according to the most game people, one of the most influential games of the decade, and Horizon Zero Dawn is kind of like a Ubisoft open world game. It's still a fun game, and I think the best part about it was like the fighting against the machines. Like that gameplay was just so solid, and like probably the most refining about the entire franchise. But it had no way to beat Legends of Breath of the Wild. Persona 5, that's, we talked about that already. That's a great game. And I kind of feel bad for any JRPG that gets nominated for Game of the Year, because like people who it got nominated for a reason, but like people don't really take JRPGs very seriously, and that's unfortunate. I mean, like they do, but like not like on the same level as like a AAA Western game, or even like a really popular Japanese space game or something like that, like Legend of Zelda or Elden Ring and stuff like that. But yeah, no, Persona 5 is still a solid game, and it definitely well deserved to be a Game of the Year nominee. And I haven't played PUBG at all, and that kind of fell off for sure after this year. And then Mario Odyssey is an amazing game. Love that game almost as much as Breath of the Wild. But yeah, what were your thoughts on the nominees in the Game of the Year?
This is again like one of those years where it's kind of like I have to leave it up to like more so my intuition than my actual like playing through some of these games, because Horizon Zero Dawn was in my mind a great game for 2017, but I played Breath of the Wild and didn't enjoy it, but I knew that it was going to win Game of the Year. I was just like, hey, it's Super Mario Odyssey. I don't play Mario games too often, so I was like, hey, does this actually have a chance? Because people were raving about that too. But I think at the end of the day, like people will continue to say that Breath of the Wild is like one of the most revolutionary games of recent memory, and that's fine and all. And that alone was like enough to be like, all right, it's probably gonna win Game of the Year.
And do you agree with that?
That like. I can very easily be like, yeah, because like I could point to Pokemon Legends Arceus and be like, hey, that's like a 1-for-1 copy of what Breath of the Wild is, except it's just not as good as Breath of the Wild.
Right.
I think that there are aspects of Breath of the Wild that like they're not entirely like. I mean, I don't know, like in terms of like when you compare it to like a big name game, like what would you compare Breath of the Wild to something that's come out since then?
Probably Elden Ring.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly pretty fair. A game that doesn't like really have like a linear story where it's like telling you, hey, you need to go here. This is what's going on. Blah,
More
blah,
so
blah,
than
blah.
Breath of the Wild, because Elden Ring literally just like puts you up and wrong. Like, okay, figure out what to do. We're not going to tell you anything.
Yep. No, 100%. I mean, that's a very fair like one for one. But like if I'm looking at all the games that won Game of the Year from that point forward, like God of War is nothing like Breath of the Wild.
No.
Sekiro, like maybe, but that's more Elden Ring than it is.
Yeah.
Odyssey,
Breath
The
of
Last
Wild,
of Us Part 2, It Takes Two, and Elden Ring. So like I don't know. I don't know that like I completely can understand that.
And I'll admit the games that have copied Breath of the Wild aren't as buzzed about. I think Elden Ring is the big one that people can directly compare to Breath of the Wild, since it is from software, and it does borrow a lot from the Dark Souls series, which is a very popular series. Like other games, like I think off the top of my head, that Ubisoft game, what was it called? Hang on, Phoenix Rising or something like that, or
yeah, Phoenix Rising,
something like that. Yeah, that game. Like people were saying that it literally copied Breath of the Wild, but like because it's Ubisoft and because it was just seen as a Breath of the Wild clone, like no one really talked about it that much. But like Elden Ring, because it's so unique from Breath of the Wild, only used like the skeleton of Breath of the Wild and filled up the meat and like the skin and all that stuff with like the Dark Souls formula. It was different enough from Breath of the Wild to actually be seen as his own thing and also inspired by Breath of the Wild at the same time, if that makes sense.
No, completely.
Yeah. Now, I will say before we move on, I think one game that was snubbed for Game of the Year is Nier Automata. I don't know if you played that game. You know what that is?
I asked for that for Christmas for the Switch port, because I heard that the port for it is really, really good. But was that, what year is that?
That was 2017.
Oh, so it just didn't get nominated for Game of the Year.
It got... Sorry, good.
No, for like a game like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, it's like, do you think that was fair that it got snubbed in place of that?
Well, I know a lot of people were raving about that, and I think PUBG was kind of revolutionary in the game industry, since it kind of started the battle royale trend, which is now, or at least was for a long time, a huge trend that a lot of games were trying to copy. So I will say I don't think it snubbed Nier Automata, but because it was kind of revolutionary in the game industry. But like just looking back on it now and seeing how little PUBG has been improved since it was since the year it came out, I feel like Nier Automata should have probably replaced it, because Nier Automata is probably one of the best games of all time in my opinion. Like it's not like perfect. That there's issues with it, and like all the games on here, it wouldn't have gotten the Game of the Year, and all the games on here besides PUBG probably would have beat it regardless. But I think Nier Automata is one of the better games I've ever played in my life. Like if I won't say too much about it, but it's a hack and slash game like Bayonetta is made by Platinum Games, as you can see. And if you like anime and like that
oh yeah,
that whole world, I think you'll enjoy Nier Automata, but I won't spoil it too much. So I'll let you enjoy it when you get it for Christmas.
Yep.
Is it everything good? Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, we totally didn't take a break just now.
We absolutely
and
it was a long one.
We definitely didn't take 2
hours.
breaks. Yeah, no, that would be unprofessional if we took 2 breaks. Like if we had for like audio or hardware malfunction, something like that, or technical difficulties. That's the right word. I can't think of words today. This is gonna be really frustrating to listen back to, and like get cringe every time I like say a word that isn't the word I'm thinking of.
We're so close though. We're so close to being done. We're almost there.
Yeah, we are. Let's go ahead and move on to 2018. I actually have some stuff to say looking at this list.
Right.
So, Game of the Year this year was God of War, and it was competing up against Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Celeste, Marvel Spider-Man, Monster Hunter World, and Red Dead. I can't talk.
Wow,
Red Dead Redemption 2. RDR 2. I was just gonna call RDR. Yeah, I'm losing my mind right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll let you go first. Like, what do you think about the Game of the Year and then its contenders?
This is easily my most controversial one, because in terms of like controversial, I think like a lot of people had God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2 pegged as the 2 Game of the Year winners, and I was on the end of Red Dead Redemption 2 should have won Game of the Year, but it goes back to that kind of conversation that we were having earlier, is that it's still about taking that outside look, outside of like your personal bias and having a favorite game, a game that you like more in comparison to like what is just the better game. And I can absolutely acknowledge that God of War was a phenomenal, retelling of, a iconic character's story and making it completely new and completely different, as opposed to, what Red Dead Redemption 2 did, which is, fantastic storytelling again and great gameplay, but just not at the level of God of War. But there were some other great games in here too. I mean, Marvel Spider-Man is great. It's definitely not on that level. It's nice to like get the years where you can actively tell what is on the pedestal of Game of the Year, and then what else is just like great games. Like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, great game. Marvel Spider-Man, great game. I've heard great things about Monster Hunter World, and I've heard great things about Celeste. So
Celeste is amazing. I highly recommend that game if you haven't played it already. That is one of my favorite games ever as well. Like top 15 for sure.
Yeah, I think it was on.
Very hard though, but
I don't know. It's was it on Game Pass maybe, or
it might have been, honestly. Yeah. I don't have Game Pass, but I wouldn't be surprised if it has been on Game Pass already. It's a 4-year-old game.
Yeah, typically I try to take advantage of those. Like when I hear something good about one of those games, and then it's like, oh, it's on Game Pass, and a year later, it's like, oh, I got to download that. But I think I missed out on it.
Got you. Yeah, if you have a chance to play that, I highly recommend it. But I guess on my take on all this, I also agree with you. God of War definitely earned Game of the Year. Is definitely on a technical level, on a gameplay level, on a story level, and like everything represents, it definitely earned Game of the Year. But I actually preferred Marvel Spider-Man out of all these games. And I know like Marvel Spider-Man definitely isn't as like technically profound, even as innovative as God of War, even Red Dead Redemption 2. But I had the most fun playing that game. Like that game was just I remember like easily 100%ing that my freshman year of college, because it was just so fun swinging around and beating up people. And like I get it definitely had like things in it that we've seen in other open world games. Other like Ubisoft is like they're the punching bag for like cookie cutter sandbox open world games. But like the movement and like the story and all that stuff, like all of that was so well done. I didn't mind like doing all these things I've been doing for like 8 years at that point. And God of War, but going back to God of War, I recognize that it's a fantastic game, but I have a lot of issues with it. Like on a technical level and like gameplay level is great, but like I feel like the writing is better than the story. The story is very small and compact. It's like a personal story, which is fine. But I feel like it was holding back, like teasing a lot of things for future games and not letting us like see the result of that until like the next game, I guess. And I just don't like it when anything does that. Like when anything, no matter how well executed it is, like holds back on its story just to hold out for like a potential sequel. I feel like Spider-Man did that perfectly, where it gave us like literally everything we can want in a Spider-Man game. Like you got Doc Ock, you got the Sinister Six, you got like the relationship between Peter and Doc Ock, and it was a very fleshed out arc that they went on. And you could basically just stop there, but then they tease more with like the Green Goblin and then Venom, I guess. I think Venom was teased at the end of Marvel Spider-Man, yeah. So it did everything you would want out of that story while also teasing more. Whereas God of War, it teased like, oh, Thor and Odin exist. Like we're gonna mention them every 15 to 20 minutes, but we're not gonna show them until the next game because you gotta wait until that happens. And like while the story and the writing was good, it was great to see Kratos and Atreus' bond grow throughout the game. It had a lot of heartfelt moments in it. I just feel like the actual like story structure just wasn't very strong.
Yeah.
And then Red Dead Redemption, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, I have complaints about God of War 2, but like it's even more so like you're acknowledging this in 2022 after have you beaten God of War Ragnarok?
Yeah, I already beat it.
So you have an experience of, all right, I've played this second game, and you now can go back and be like, hey, the things that they did in the first one are they're either not as good as you remember, or they're worse. And unfortunately, like I think after I'm done playing God of War Ragnarok, I'll never be able to go back and play the original God of War because so many aspects of it are just so improved or just like way better than what they were in that first one in Ragnarok. And I don't need to go back and play that. But like The Last of Us, which is an 8 to 10 hour game, like I can play The Last of Us Part 2 and go back and play The Last of Us because it's still such a well polished game and the story still feels real every time you play it. Whereas like I completely understand your criticisms with the story in God of War, and part of the reason why I was still a Red Dead Redemption 2 guy. So
yeah, and Red Dead Redemption 2, my only issue with that was it felt more like, and I'm kind of quoting Nakey Jakey. I don't know if you know who he is or seen his video in Red Dead Redemption 2. Do you know who that is?
No.
Yeah, he made a 30-minute video about how Rockstar's game design is kind of dated. Like they try to like have these scripted adventures in a open world setting and give you the illusion that you have all this freedom in this open world like Breath of the Wild or Skyrim or something like that, but it restricts you in how you approach its missions and its gameplay and stuff like that. Like everything feels like it's automated, like the shooting's automated, like the leveling up system's automated, stuff like that. Granted, I didn't do as much with the open world as other people did, so I didn't really experience that. I mostly just experienced the story, which was very well done and very well told, even though I don't really remember most of it. So I do want to go back and play Red Dead Redemption 2 at some point in the future, so I can like really take my time and like chew on the aspects everyone else was praising, and also see what everyone else was criticizing. But yeah, we were talking about Marvel Spider-Man. Celeste, you haven't played that, but that's a great game. It's a 2D platformer indie game. Music's fantastic. Gameplay is great, but it's hard. If you like platformers, I think you'll enjoy that. And also the story is very well done if you deal with like social anxiety or depression and things like that.
Gotcha.
Very good for that. But yeah, do you have anything else to say about these games?
No, not about 2018 specifically. Good year. Okay. I think it's
great year.
It's one of the better, if not close to the best. I think 2020 is, from what I remember, the best one. But we'll get there.
2020 and 2017 and 2018 were probably the best years. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Next year is 2019. So this year was not as strong in my opinion, but it still had some pretty good games. Or games I've heard about. So you have Sekiro, Shadow Die Twice, that one game of the year. It was up against Control, Death Stranding, Outer Worlds, Resident Evil 2, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I can go ahead and lead this one.
Yeah,
I guess we can take turns. I don't know if we've been doing that, but I don't really have that much to say. I haven't played Sekiro. I heard great things about it. I played a little bit of Control, and the little bit I played was pretty fun. But I don't even think I got to an hour in that game. But the game I have the most experience with, and probably the game I put in the most hours in like all the games I ever played in my life, I think is probably Smash Ultimate. I think I have I'm almost at 1,000 hours in that game on my Switch, which is pretty crazy. There's other people that have more hours than me. Like I'm sure there's someone at like 20,000 or something like that. But yeah, no, Smash Ultimate, it was not gonna be Game of the Year. And we kind of got into it a little bit earlier, but I'll reiterate. I think the reason why it was on this list was because it does embody everything. It's a love letter to gaming, like old school gaming, Nintendo gaming in particular. But even like it added Persona 5, like Joker was the first DLC fighter, and then like you had Sephiroth, which I guess that's more old school gaming. And then ended with Sora, which he wasn't in the game until well after it got nominated for Game of the Year in 2019. But regardless, it tried to like really tie in all aspects of gaming and put it into this one game. And even though it's this fun, silly like party fighter game,
right.
It still had a lot about it that really showed that it appreciates like the world of gaming, and I think that's why I love it, and that's why it got nominated. But I'll let you go ahead and talk about your thoughts on all the games.
This year was it was questionable. Like
yeah,
I feel like I don't have the games listed, but I feel like there were games left out that probably should have been nominated and could have won Game of the Year in my opinion. I'll have to go back.
I'm seeing Devil May Cry could have been one of them. I see it got nominated for Best Score. It should have gotten best action game. Let me see.
Yeah, but
No, Sekiro got it.
2019.
And it wasn't even nominated. Oh no, sorry. Best action game. Sekiro got action adventure game. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's just I'm trying to look through it right now on my end, but like, oh gosh, I can't really.
I can see in the list real quick.
Disco Elysium came out way before that, but it's neither here nor there. The biggest thing for me is like this is one of the weakest years.
Yeah.
And of all the games I played here, I didn't play any of them except for the Outer Worlds and Super Smash Bros. I think Resident Evil 2 is like what you should make, what remakes should actually be like for video games. Mm-hmm. That's a whole different conversation, but like when you go back and you look at a remake, like the part 1 of The Last of Us and this Resident Evil 2, it's very clear which one is like a remake of a game and which one is not. It's just a upgrade of graphics and whatnot.
They technically remade Last of Us Part 1, but it was more of like a reskin, recoloring, more than like they were actually rebuilding the game.
Right.
Like with new mechanics and all that stuff.
Yeah, I know the story behind that and everything, but at the end of the day, like what PlayStation turned it into is still not what I believe a remake should be listed as, but
I agree.
I digress.
You have to make a good point.
I just think that
and it's $70. Like who has time for that?
Right. And then, but my thing with Resident Evil and kind of what I've been trying to say about Game of the Year in general is like it should bring light to a like new standard in gaming. And so Resident Evil 2 is a remake of a very old and popular video game. It should be in that vein of like, hey, it did something that a lot of people probably wouldn't be happy with, and people are even saying like, hey, don't remake Resident Evil 4, but they're still gonna do it, and people will either love it or hate it. Yeah, exactly. But that's what I think remakes should be like. Death Stranding is, again, we talked about Kojima. Anytime a Kojima game is made in a year, it'll probably get nominated for Game of the Year. I personally will never play Death Stranding. I've seen the gameplay, and really? I know that I would just despise it. Control is an interesting game. That's one I want to play that I haven't. I think I'd like it. And then Sekiro, I guess, was just, a different version of the Souls games that had, I think, a bit more story to it and kind of, wasn't exactly that version of Souls where, like, you just kind of grind,
Yeah, and I was interested in playing this game, but at that point, I think the only Soulsborne game I played was Bloodborne, and I didn't want to waste $60 on a game that I didn't know I was going to beat. I took that risk with Elden Ring because I felt like Elden Ring would have been like, I think I would have enjoyed Elden Ring regardless if it was hard or not. But with Sekiro, because it was a linear game, and it felt more like a traditional Souls game, I just didn't play it. But I might go back to it at some point in the future. Yeah. All right. I guess we can. Yeah, 2020. This is my controversial. It's not really controversial take, but this is where this is the year I didn't agree with certain decisions. But I'll let you go and lead this one.
This is just the greatest year of video games.
It is, but I don't agree with the game of the year. But I got to say all the games and which one won. So, Last of Us Part 2 won, and it competed against Animal Crossing, Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, and Hades. So I'll let you go ahead and start this one, and I'll follow up.
So 2020, the reason why I have a lot of deep feelings about this year is because I actually got to write articles for reviews for Final Fantasy VII Remake and for The Last of Us Part 2 for my school paper.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so I feel a very deep way about Final Fantasy VII Remake. I never played the original Final Fantasy VII, so I think it gives me a completely unique view, and because of that, when I wrote my article, I gave it a perfect 10 out of 10 score.
Oh, wow.
And, my friends who, had played the original talked to me, and they're like, hey, like, this is why I didn't. This is like why they didn't like it, because they were like, hey, if you play the original Final Fantasy VII, you'll know this and you'll know that. But to me, why would I make myself go back and play a game that, it's now I've gotten the remake, I've gotten part of the story. Why do I go and spoil myself if I enjoyed the remake version so much? If like I go back and I play Final Fantasy VII, it's gonna completely destroy my like vision or any of the like really cool animation of all these things that I don't know about already, and it's got a hold
I
on me.
don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, but
but
it's got such a hold on me in such a unique way that like there's not a game that I wouldn't do that for. Like again, Mass Effect 2. Starting with Mass Effect 2, I went back and played Mass Effect. I'm gonna go and I'm playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3 before I ever play 2 or 1.
Wow, I didn't know you're playing that.
I'm gonna do it for Christmas, but there's just so many times where like I would go back and I would play original games if I felt like, oh, this first one caught my interest. I think going back and starting these older ones, the ones that were original, would be a good idea. But with remake, it's got such a hold on me that I want to feel and experience all of remake before I ever experience 7. I don't know. I know that people will probably view that as a controversial take, but I think remake
I see where you're coming from. I just think of it differently. I like to start with the first thing before I go to like the remake or like the sequel, so I can like recognize the references and understand like I guess their thought process and what they wanted to change and what they wanted to keep the same. Because I actually did go back and play Final Fantasy VII before I played the remake. I didn't beat the original, but I beat the amount that remake adapted, and it was really cool to see like what they added and what they updated and how they really fleshed out that first world. That first opening, like 9 hours, I think.
Yeah.
Or no, it wasn't 9 hours. Like I think it was 5 hours. Or
it's like
it wasn't that long.
20
it was,
hours of the.
Yeah, first couple hours. I don't remember how many hours, but the first, because like the section that remake did is only like a small amount of Final Fantasy VII.
Right.
But I felt like it was a more rewarding experience to play that part first, like the original first, before I went to the remake. But that being said, I did find more flaws with it because I did feel more padding. It wasn't a lot of padding. I'd say there's like maybe 2 sections in the entire remake that I felt like they could have cut out and it would have been fine. But other than that, I think it's a great remake. I think it's a great reimagining of a iconic game, an iconic story. It definitely adds more to the original. If you played the original and you go to remake it, in my opinion, but it also it's enjoyable as a standalone thing as well. So like you can I don't agree with how you're playing it, but I can kind of see where you're coming from with it.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be a 1-to-1 remake. The next couple games will be,
right.
But we'll see, because I don't really know. Like I know the general story of Final Fantasy VII. I don't know how I know certain key moments that happen in the original story. There's one huge spoiler that I'm sure you probably know, because like that's like the worst kept secret in all gaming. But
yeah,
I won't say it just in case. But other than that huge spoiler, I don't really know much about the story. But I feel like they're not gonna do a 1-to-1 remake of the story anymore. They're gonna do their own thing.
I mean, Final Fantasy VII remake isn't even a 1-to-1 from what I've gathered. Like a lot of things are. Not a lot of things, but major plot points are changed in certain ways or have additions to them that play a unique role to what remake is in comparison to 7. I just think it's unique, like what remake was able to do, and again, going back to that conversation about making remakes and how they should be done, probably right there with it with Resident Evil 2, but. Moving on, Ghost of Tsushima, another personal just favorite of mine. I think that
that's a great game. It's a great game.
I put it up there in terms of like story with. I think for me it's in between The Last of Us, which I think is the greatest, and like between it's behind God of War, maybe. No, I put it in front of God of
Absolutely.
War.
I don't know where I would rank Ghost of Tsushima. It's definitely up there. I don't know where I would rank it, but
I
yeah.
love it. I think think it's a completely new and unique story in recent memory. And for PlayStation, that's great. They're not going off of what they've had for the past decade, 2 decades, and I think that'll make a nice, sequel at some point. Hades, we talked about Hades already. I don't think we need to say any more about it. Doom Eternal is just, kind of like what you say about any sequel of a game that comes out within 5 years of each other. It's like more of the same greatness. So,
I actually have
Animal Crossing, New Horizons. I'll never play Animal Crossing, so I will not.
I liked it. It's definitely a game that I would that's necessary for me, but I can see the appeal to it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Do you want to say The Last of Us for like a discussion for us, or
man, The Last of Us Part 2? Probably one of the most controversial games ever. Not for the reasons that people make it out to be, like, all the trolls and everything online, but honestly just like one of the most controversial stories in video games and just like how they went about it.
It's a very unique game in that instance. 'Cause I don't think we've ever had a game that's been this polarizing before.
Yeah,
like I think it's kind of remarkable, honestly.
It's just kind of like the way that you can handle the story. Like, I think there are perceptions of this story that are like so just like on track with what I have in my mind, and then I hear a different side to the story, and I'm like, oh, I can see that too, and I go back and forth between it's a masterpiece or it's a great game. I don't think it's anything lower than it's a great game, but is it a masterpiece?
Yeah, no, I agree. Game? It's not a masterpiece, yeah. And I guess I'll start my take, my thoughts on these games with Last of Us Part 2, since we're already here. I think it's a great game. I actually like The Last of Us Part 2. I understand why people don't like it. I see their point of view, but I do think it's overall a good game. I don't think it should have got a Game of the Year. That's my hot take. And I know a lot of people probably would agree with me, but considering that I actually like the game, and I think it shouldn't have gotten a Game of the Year, I think that kind of says something. And the reason why I think it shouldn't have gotten a Game of the Year is just because I don't think it's a game that really united gamers. Like, I don't think it's a game that makes you feel good about playing video games. And that's the point of the game. Like, it's not supposed to make you feel good, but it's supposed to make you feel bad. Like, there's a lot of moments in the game that, whether it's gameplay or the story, that make you feel kind of slimy and gross while you're watching or playing it. It does a lot of things with the story that, like, it purposely makes you feel bad about what you're doing. And, like, even though it is, I do commend it for being a game that isn't trying to appeal to a mainstream audience. I don't think it should have got a Game of the Year. I think Ghost of Tsushima or even Doom Eternal probably more so. Doom Eternal probably more so should have got a Game of the Year. Now I think about it, because I had a lot more fun playing Doom Eternal than Ghost of Tsushima. If I want to be really honest with myself, even I had a lot of fun with Ghost of Tsushima. Doom Eternal basically did to Doom 2016 and, like, just elevated it. I feel like Doom 2016 in comparison is kind of like a demo to Doom Eternal. That's how good I feel like it is. But I know there's some Doom 2016 fans that like Doom 2016 better than Eternal, which is fine. Hades, I had so many hours in that game. As like, literally, I think I played that this as much as I played Smash at some point when I first got it that year. Hades is just a phenomenal game, and then Final Fantasy VII Remake is also a great game. Even if you haven't played the original, I think it does hold. It does stand on its own as its own game, except for the ending, which I feel like is very much you need to know certain things about the Final Fantasy VII universe in order to understand what's going on. But once you look it up, you'll be fine. But yeah, great year. I agree with you. Like, the 2020 was definitely a great year. I just don't agree that Part 2 should have gotten Game of the Year that year, even though it was technically the best game on like a literal technical perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think all those games on a technical level. I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake on a technical level is very impressive in my mind. Not just for, like, what it took and did, like, remade, but, like, just in general, it looks spectacular.
Yeah, I agree.
2021.
Yeah, let's get into 2021. I think this year was weak. Yeah, it was weaker.
Yeah, it was a little bit weaker.
Yeah, I accidentally played two of these games, or completed two of these games. I started It Takes Two, and it was pretty fun, but I had to coordinate with the guy that I was playing with to pick up where we left off, and I haven't had time to see him, so I haven't been able to beat it. But the two games I played were Metroid Dread and Ratchet and Clank. Metroid Dread was actually a really fun game. I saw it when it was first revealed at that I think that June or E3 Nintendo Direct. I thought it looked cool, and I wanted to play it and pay full price for it because I never played a Metroid game before, but I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. It definitely felt like a AAA experience in like 2D form. And in Ratchet and Clank, it's just a fun time. It's not like anything that's groundbreaking outside of like the visuals, but I think it was a fun game. Deathloop, I heard mixed things about. People either love it or hate it. And then Resident Evil Village, I heard it was a great game. So those are my thoughts. And also Psychonauts 2, I heard that was a great game too, but I haven't played it yet. But yeah, what are your thoughts on? Oh, by the way, sorry. It Takes Two won Game of the Year. I don't know if I said that. And then our nominees were Deathloop, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. Those are all the nominees. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes.
Justin.
No. So this is one that I had picked out like the minute that I was done playing it. I played It Takes Two with my best friend, and we beat it all the way through. And I said, "There's never been a co-op game that I've thoroughly enjoyed playing with someone else in forever. Like I can't name the last co-op game that made me actually like want to like text my buddy and be like,
maybe
hey,
Lego
like,
Star Wars.
Yeah, like let's get on, like let's play It Takes Two, and it was just like from start to finish the like most fun I've had in so long. Where like this is the year where I was just like, did I have fun playing video games? And which one was the one that I had the most fun with? And it was It Takes Two. I played Deathloop. I fall in the probably what I would assume is the minority of people that despise this game. I literally, it was super boring. It's kind of like one of those games where it like they try to tell you, hey, it's rewarding to look around and like find the like cool things to do and like the cool ways to kill enemies and stuff. But in reality, all I had to do in that game was go do whatever the objective said and then just run away from enemies. Not even like actually shoot at them or like try to dodge or try to do anything. I just ran away. Like it wasn't really one of those games where I felt like I had to engage with the enemies, and the story was so boring. It was like, oh, I might as well just like blitz through it. It was really bad. Ratchet and Clank, the first technical next-gen exclusive video game, I believe, right?
Yeah, for PS5. Yeah. Yes, you're right.
So I
actually no, I think that was Miles Morales? Well, that was a remake. Say it again.
No, Miles Morales. I thought Miles Morales.
No, not Miles Morales. I was about to say Demon Souls, but that was technically a remake. So Ratchet and Clank was the first one that was ground up.
Yeah, but I thought it was really fun. I've always thought that Ratchet and Clank is like kind of like that comedic relief that you get in video games where you know you go and watch Cartoon Network on a sunny day or something, and you watch something goofy like the Imaginary House or whatever that place or whatever that show is called, Imaginary Friends or whatever.
Oh, Imaginary Friends, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yeah. Just have a good old time. But
I
liked it a lot. I don't think it was Game of the Year. You have that kind of echelon where it's like,
I feel like Returnal probably should have gotten nominated. I haven't beat it yet, but I felt like that was probably a little bit more refined. Same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy should have been nominated. That was a great game.
That was a great game. Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 2021. I would put that in front of... I'd probably put that in front of Deathloop easily.
It got Best Narrative, so I don't know why it didn't get nominated for Game of the Year. Like, usually Best Narrative and Best... Like, it got nominated for a lot of things, like Narrative...
Typically, the Game of the Year and Game Direction are, like, the two awards that have the same exact... nominees most of the time.
It wasn't like an amazing game, but from what I heard, it sounds like it's better than Deathloop. I haven't played Deathloop yet, but it sounds like better than Deathloop. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it was. It was 100%
yeah.
better.
Even like and like if you said that best game direction is usually the same as game of the year.
Yes.
Resident Evil Village didn't get the game direction, so why didn't they put Guardians of the Galaxy in there? Like I'm confused. I don't know. That actually makes me a little mad. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that it didn't get nominated for game of the year. But yeah, that game should have been nominated.
Yeah, no, it was phenomenal. But
Yeah.
and then I didn't play Resident Evil Village. I haven't played a Resident Evil game in my life, so
Me neither.
I don't know when I'm gonna do that, but I have to do that.
I'm too scared.
I'm also kind of that way.
Straight
I
up.
haven't really played a horror game in a very, very long time. And then
The only horror game I played was Five Nights at Freddy's, and I barely beat that.
That's just jump scares. That's not even scary.
Yeah.
But I didn't play Psychonauts
I don't
2,
do
and
that.
I didn't play Metroid Dread, so I can't really comment on those
I got
two.
you.
But my buddy said that
Yeah.
Metroid Dread was like way up there.
Metro Dread is really fun. Like that was another a game that clicked with me that year
Yeah.
for sure. All right, and then the last year, which is the latest year, is 2022. So I'm surprised. Bill Clinton got nominated. I'm surprised I don't see his name in here.
Lord. That's,
How do you feel about that? But before we get to the
dude,
games,
so,
the games.
so weird and just like how did no one notice? How did the people
Yeah.
that walked up there not like look behind them? And because I know I looked at their faces when he went and he did his spiel, and they're like who is this kid? And it's like, why? How could you not have noticed that earlier, though? But
Yeah, and seeing the videos of him going up the stage, like literally going out in the crowd and going up the stage, and I'm like, I don't understand why
and
security
then
didn't see
people
that.
gave him a platform, and so now he's got.
Yeah, and that's kind of dumb, and it really took away. It didn't take the attention all the way from the Elden Ring team, but it kind of took away from it a little bit. But yeah, let me speed through this because we are slowly running out of time. We're about to get to like 2 hours and 15 minutes, but yeah, we kind of talked about this earlier, but sorry, let me say the games. Keep on forgetting that. Elden Ring got Game of the Year, and it went up against Plague Tale's Requiem, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So Elden Ring, already talked about that. I don't think. I don't think there was any other game on this list that deserved it more than Elden Ring, just based off of the gameplay and just how it kind of brought community together.
Yep.
I think that alone is more than enough reason for why Elden Ring should have gotten Game of the Year. The other contender, God of War Ragnarok, phenomenal game as well. I think its only shortcoming, it fixed my issues with the gameplay in God of War 1 and like the story of how small it was, and the writing just improved. But I think the biggest issue I have with God of War Ragnarok is it does kind of feel like they were cramming a lot into one game. I think their decision to make the Norse mythology saga 2 games to the 3 definitely shows in this game, because they crammed in a lot of like lore and like finality into that one game, and I felt the ending was a little bit messy in terms of its some decisions it made. But I won't say just because you haven't played it yet.
I haven't finished it
Horizon,
yet.
yeah. Horizon Forbidden West was a fun game. I think I was very addicted to that game the first like couple days I had it. I think my only issue with that game is that it has too much stuff to do on it, and like not everything in it is very attractive to do. Like I think it really tried to be like The Witcher 3, where it had like a bunch of stuff, and like I think it had like a game like Gwent in it that it was fun for the first like hour I played it, but I wasn't really feeling it towards the end. And then there's other like unnecessary things that they added that I just felt like it wasn't need to be in the game. But the thing that I saw that in the last game I saw that was just the combat between the humans and the combat you have with the robot creatures. Like that was probably more fun in this game than it was in the last game.
Yeah.
And then I didn't play Plague's Requiem, I didn't play Stray or Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but I heard a lot of great things about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I beat the first game, and I'm almost done with the second game. I'm probably going to drop it because it's kind of annoying. But I heard this is the best one, so I'm excited to play that when I have time. But JRPGs, especially the Xenoblade series, takes up a lot of your time.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know when I'm going to have time to play it, but when I do, I'm going to be really excited to dig my teeth into it. But yeah, I'll go ahead and let you talk about your thoughts on these games.
I have to go back and look, but Stray being in here is absolutely a slap in the face of games that came out this year. I know there's got to be something else that came out this year that is
Sonic Frontiers.
Yeah, Sonic.
No, I mean I love Sonic Frontiers, but it was not going to be.
I take Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 over that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's no way Stray's an actual game that people were like.
Did you play it?
No.
Oh.
It's a game. It's a game for cat people. Come on, Perry. It's a game.
Oh, okay. Oh, you have a bias against. Okay, I thought you were being like serious. I mean, you are, but like you have a bias against cats.
I would put Pokemon Legends Arceus in front of it.
Wow.
I'd probably
that's a lot of hate.
I actually really didn't like this game. But I'd probably put Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
You don't like Lego Star Wars?
No, it was really bad in comparison.
Oh, wow! You were really excited for that game.
I was very excited for that game for like 2 years. The past 2 years that they were supposed to be coming out with it, but there's no way Stray is a actual Game of the Year nominee.
Yeah, I don't know what else would have replaced it though, because like I'm looking at the other games that were here. And I'm like, maybe. Well, Shredder's Revenge was really fun, but I don't know if that was worthy of getting Game of the Year.
There was definitely some indie games. Oh, Sifu. How did Sifu?
Sifu. Yeah, that's a good. I haven't played that, but I heard. Oh, you played it. Though.
I played it. I loved it. I thought it would have been my Game of the Year if I didn't think Elden Ring should win.
Yeah.
But Stray being on here just upsets me. Elden Ring.
Yeah, I felt like Sifu was probably better. Like I agree with that, but sorry, go ahead.
No, I know that we're running out of time, so I just want to speed through this. So Elden Ring, we've already talked about it. It deserved it. Plague Tale Requiem. It's probably more of a story game. That's where you could probably get caught in the conversation of like what was the thing that you were saying, like a movie game or whatever. A walking simulator.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
God of War Ragnarok, talked about that enough. Horizon Forbidden West, I think, gets way too much criticism for certain things. I think it does try to copy a lot of what The Witcher did, and it's just a little bit boring. It is a bit boring, the side stuff. It doesn't, like, grab you in any unique way.
And the story is not that great, honestly. It's kind of lackluster. It's not, like, terrible, but I wasn't very impressed with it.
Yeah.
But
and
I digress.
Stray, I already said my piece on that. And then I'm really looking forward to like playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I one of my someone I know who got me into the Xenoblade series. He's played the first one multiple times. He beat the second one. He said the 3 is definitely the best one. So I think you'll have a good time with that if that's your first Xenoblade game.
Yeah,
I think that's about it for our discussion. That's all the Game of the Years and stuff like that. Yeah, did you have any else you want to say, Justin, before we wrap up?
No,
like,
I'm all
do you want to plug your content or like?
No, I'm good. You know, I would plug it if I was doing it right now, but I'm not. Hopefully,
that's fair.
Hopefully, I'll be back on it soon. Hopefully in the new year. Hopefully early into the new year. But I appreciate you having me on, and you know,
no problem. And I'll probably put your stuff in the description. But yeah, no, for sure, man. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you taking your time in the schedule to talk to me and get this podcast going. Yeah, thank you for doing this, Justin, and thank you everyone for listening at home. I will see you in the next video. And I haven't figured out an outro yet, and hopefully by the last person I'll figure out an outro. But yeah, bye. See you guys later. Have a good day. All right.